Good morning, everyone. Evolve or die. It sounds pretty extreme, doesn't it? But this is the challenge that many businesses are facing today. Digital transformation has become a huge topic in the last couple of years, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about what it is, how you can develop a program of transformation in your business, and hopefully it will set the scene for a lot of the content you're going to hear today around cloud. But I want to start with why digital transformation has become so important. And that's really the topic of disruption. Disruption is that fear that you're going to be changed or become irrelevant from a startup or a challenger. And disruption comes with such negative connotations, but if you look it up in the dictionary, you get it's a change to the normal or a change to the status quo. And disruption is often framed in terms of technology or digital, but really it's nothing new. In fact, there's a great quote from playwright George Bernard Shaw from 1903, which goes something like this. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, but the unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Think about that for a second. Progress depends on the unreasonable man. The crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the square pegs in the round holes, the ones who dare to think differently. They have no respect for the status quo. And that's another quote. You might recognize it from the Apple commercial from some 94 years later. And in the video, you see the great disruptors throughout history. And what these two quotes speak about is that actually change is a good thing. Change drives the human race forwards. But for businesses today, change can be actually pretty terrifying. Change means uncertainty. So if you have to adapt new business models, new ways of interacting with your customers, new ways of enabling your employees to deliver their services, that can be a really difficult challenge. But that change is inevitable, and it's being driven by technology, from the global networks that allow instant collaboration, to the rise of the smartphone, which has put the power in the hands of the customer like nothing else before it. And of course, cloud computing, the platform that makes it all possible. And cloud computing has really democratized IT for these disruptors. No longer do you have to invest in an expensive IT infrastructure. You can use what you want when you need it. And we all know that's how cloud works with the cost model. But what's really interesting is how it powers such massive and huge growth with its unlimited scalability. But how do we know? Well, just take a look at the experts. Take a look at the winners. Take a look at the unicorns. A business unicorn is defined as a private company which has reached a $1 billion valuation. Now, they're called unicorns because they used to be quite rare. Before 2011, on average, 4 unicorns were born in every year. But as you can see from this graphic, in the last 5 years, over 200 unicorns have been born. And that 10x increase is really interesting. But I think what's more interesting than that is the time it takes to get to that valuation. So 10 years ago, before we had cloud computing, the time it took for a company to get to a $1 billion valuation was about 20 years. Now, going from startup to that $1 billion valuation takes on average 6 years. And I think it's no coincidence that if you take that 6 years and subtract it from 2013 when this huge rise started, it coincides very nicely with the launch of Amazon Web Services as a cloud platform. And I know we've got some people from Amazon here today. I think it would be really interesting to find out how many of these companies which are born in the cloud are actually customers. I think I know probably how many it is. And at this point, I typically give you an example and talk about one of these great companies to demonstrate what it is. And in the past, I've often spoken about Uber. I think everyone knows the Uber story, right? They've probably had enough publicity for 1 year. So I've got another example which I want to share with you. Let's watch this short video.
I'm hungry, man.
I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
Famished. I am famished.
Order a pizza.
Yeah, order a pizza. I can go for a pizza.
I want pizza, but I don't want to order a pizza.
I wish there was like a button, you know, and all you have to do was push that button and then pizza comes.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah.
I wish I had a button I could push for pizza.
A button you could push for pizza.
Yeah, like an app. And it's just got one button on it.
And that one button?
Pizza.
Pizza.
So like an iPhone app, and we'll make it so you only put your information in once and you'll never have to do it again.
Never again.
Just one button and you push it.
Push it for pizza.
Push for pizza. We have to make it.
We have to.
Yeah.
We'll make one of those videos where I turn to the camera and I'm like, are you tired of ordering pizza by pressing buttons or
Do you want
something?
pizza?
Yes.
Do you want pizza?
And do you want it now? I want to wear a suit.
If you want pizza and don't want to spend a lot of time finding a
Putting
place,
in your credit cards and
Say
shit.
it's like Uber for pizza.
That's kind of
we
stupid.
can't say Uber. 2 choices for now to keep it simple. Plain and pepperoni. Just pick your preference, then
Then push the button.
Push the button.
push for pizza.
The Push for Pizza app sends out your request along with your payment info and pizza preference.
And hot pizza shows up at your door, all paid up, even the tip. Push for pizza. Yeah, it's real.
Download it for free on the App Store.
Yes, it is real. 4 college friends set the company up, 200K of funding, and they've already reached $1 million valuation. And it just goes to show that if you have a great idea, you can develop it and sell to thousands of people, all from the comfort of your own home. And it's cloud that's really enabled that for businesses today. In the past, you would have needed manufacturing or distribution, perhaps access to physical retail stores, maybe even an expensive TV advert. But none of that is required now. So my last slide around disruption is about how the disruptors can deliver efficiency through the workforce. And I have to admit, I stole this one from a chap called Daniel Priestley. He's a startup and entrepreneur mentor, and he believes the future is these high-growth companies. And if you get the opportunity to go and see him speak, he's got loads of great stats and slides. He's a very interesting chap. Now, while I realise it isn't the most scientific, what this shows you is the established companies and the disruptors and the number of staff that they employ. And I think, as you can see, disruptors can deliver a huge global brand with millions of customers with maybe 5, 10, or 15 times fewer employees. And when you start to think about AI and robotics and automation and other technological advances, the next 20 years of the human workforce is going to become a very fascinating and interesting place indeed. That's probably a presentation for another time. So that's why digital transformation is so important for companies. You risk being disrupted by these companies that come along with a new business model. So now I want to talk a little bit about the what. What is digital transformation and what makes it up? There are lots of definitions out there, but I like to split it up into 2 parts. So I'm going to start with business transformation. And for me, there are 4 main pillars of business transformation. So the first of these is customer experience. Some say maybe the most important one. Phrasing your product, your offer, your service in a customer-centric way that makes it appealing or perhaps interesting for companies to do business with you. And as we saw from that video, if you have that great idea and you can come up with a seamless way of engaging, it's a very appealing offer. Secondly, you have your internal customers or employees, employee experience. And that might be something simple from a portal where you can log holiday time or perhaps submit your expenses. I'm sure many of the companies you work for have those sort of facilities available. But a huge number of businesses haven't gone down that road yet. And actually, when you think of the tools that you can deliver instant messaging and collaboration with in the cloud, it makes your employees more efficient and more able to do their job. But this also speaks to other processes, such as remote working or being able to engage in community projects. It's that employee experience which is becoming really important. The third pillar is process optimization, and this can be quite a tricky one for people to understand. But if you think about what happens in a business, a problem arises and you quickly cobble together a process to solve that problem. And you do it again, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and before you know it, that's become the default process. But it's not been documented, it's not been designed that way, it's just a way to solve the problem. So process optimization takes that 60,000-foot view of the company, looks at all the operating processes, delivers technology to make things more efficient, and reduces repeat work. And the fourth pillar, the final one, is product transformation or product digitization. And this is using new technology to make your product or services more engaging, to make them better for the customers. And I've got a great example which talks about this in a moment. So that's business transformation and the four pillars. And then next we have the foundation of digital transformation, which is IT transformation. So it starts with developing IT services that run in the cloud. But you also have the important use of data, which is helping companies to make much better business decisions. But what becomes the next stage is when you move and evolve all those services to work in the same cloud platform. And then you can start to do some really interesting things by decoupling applications, by improving efficiency, and by delivering automation. And that's many of the DevOps processes that you might have heard of. Configuration management, orchestration, application performance monitoring, and of course, wrapping it all in one security layer. And this sounds a bit of a cliche, but it's really important that digital transformation is a top-down process within the organization. It's vital that this is sponsored by the Office of the Chief Executive or by the board. Small projects of transformation have a much lower rate of success than a large company-wide program of transformation. So that's my definition of what digital transformation actually is. There's lots of great articles online. I particularly recommend the McKinsey digital blog for some in-depth discussions about these points. And also, Microsoft has some absolutely great examples of particularly collaboration. So now I just want to give you 3 examples to demonstrate how some industry-leading companies are transforming their businesses today. And the first of those is Argos. You might know them as the high street catalogue retailer, but they're actually going through a huge digital transformation at the moment. And what's really interesting about what Argos has done is they've built a digital centre of excellence. So outside the head office in Milton Keynes, they have a separate office in London where they've taken people from across the business, from IT, from HR, from finance, from store design, from customer experience, and they've let them all work together in this one area, developing new ways of engaging with the customer and new ways of presenting the product. And actually, if you walk into an Argos today, as you can probably see from the image, it's a very different proposition. I actually went in one for the first time about 10 years ago, and this really is the store of the future. I completely didn't recognize it. The second example I like to use is Nike. And they've done something really interesting because they realized that their product wasn't differentiating them from the competitors. So they knew they needed to do something different. And what Nike realized was that actually people don't just want to buy the shoes or the clothes or the equipment. They want an experience. How did they do that? Well, they put chips in the shoes. So when you go for your run or when you exercise, you can measure them on the smartphone app or on your smartwatch. That data then gets uploaded to their cloud, and you can compete with your friends, you can share your progress, And actually now they've developed their product into a lot more of a fitness experience. And that takes from those pillars of transformation, product digitization, as well as that real customer focus on what customers want. And my final example for today is really speaking to the metrics. And that example is Virgin Media. Virgin Media work in a highly competitive customer space. But they've done something really interesting to try and improve how they engage with their customers. They've adopted NPS, or Net Promoter Score, across the entire business as their primary metric. So Net Promoter Score, for those of you who don't know, is the ultimate customer services question. Would you recommend us to a friend or family member? And what they've done is everyone's bonus within the organization, from the executive team right down to the receptionist, is focused around that Net Promoter Score. So they track it and they can see how they're improving. But more than anything, it gives them one customer focus to talk about. So other business metrics, such as customer churn and bottom line revenue, of course, they're still important. But your customers don't care about them. This is all about framing what your business does in terms of the customer. So that's the how, looking at experts and learning what they've done and seeing how you can adopt that into your business. And my final point for today really just speaks to how technology is changing and how our interaction with technology is changing. And I want to just mention digital assistants. So Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and Google are all developing AI-based digital assistants where we will talk to the technology. And this presents a very real challenge for businesses. For hundreds of years, we've been used to talking to customers by showing them words or showing them images. But how do you sell your product or service and make it compelling if you can't display it to them on a screen? This is the next big challenge that we're all going to say. And I know what you're thinking. I can actually see it on your faces. You're a swiper. You're a tapper. You're never going to talk to your device. That's actually a little bit weird if you think about it. It's a bit embarrassing. But if you think about it, 15 years ago, people said you would never buy clothes online. You'd need to feel the fabric or check the fit. But actually, apparel and clothing is the quickest growing e-commerce vertical today. And 10 years ago, people said you would never store your data in the cloud. But if you didn't know where your data was and you didn't know where the servers was, how would you be able to keep it secure? Technology is changing. It's changing the way we interact with it, and it's changing the way we do business, and it's only getting quicker and quicker. Thank you very much. I hope that was interesting. Thank you.